Good evening and welcome to United Black Book Clubs of Pittsburgh's virtual fall reading series. UBBCP is an association of librarians, readers, and members of book clubs who want to spread our love of reading by providing literary events and activities. I am Lorena Amos Brock. And let me introduce you to the rest of UBBCP's members. There's Evelyn King, Lois McClendon, Benita Penn, Helen Turner, and Cynthia Battle. Normally, our events take place at Homewood Library, but the threat of the coronavirus has closed the library to crowds. So we are so happy to present writers, readers, and storytellers from all over the country virtually. United Black Book Clubs of Pittsburgh's 2020 and 2021 theme is Literary Healing, the Door of No Return. The fall reading series is definitely for literary healing. We are living in strange times with stressful events and traumatic truths. This fall, let us support our children. During this pandemic, everything has changed. School, socialization, economics, government, healthcare, childcare, etc. Children, parents, and community every Wednesday from 7 to 8, join UBBCP for our children-centered programs for literary healing. Reading, writing, telling, and listening to stories can heal. Our fall reading series goal is to show you that you can use literacy to heal. The end result is that we want you to see that literacy promotes lifelong education. Please spread the word. We thank our partners, Trying Together, Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures, Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, Homewood Branch, and the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh. We really appreciate the hard work of our tech team at the Homewood Community Engagement Center for providing the technical know-how to put this program together. Tonight, we have a treat. Please enjoy listening to the stories and the discussion around storytelling. You can jump into the discussion by typing your questions in the chat, but Benita will tell you what to do.
Good evening. We are in a Zoom webinar, so everyone's mic will be mute. If you want to comment or ask a question, you click on the chat button below the bottom of your screen and type in your question or comment. If you are on our YouTube channel, just make sure you're signed into YouTube, and then you'll be able to post a comment. And if you're watching via Facebook Live, just comment in a post. All of your questions will be gathered and shared during the Q&A at the end of the program. Thank you very much.
Well, we have Miss Linda Goss, AKA Mama Linda Goss, here live, and you see her by the telephone. Now, for all of you guys who don't know too much about Linda Goss, she's a fantastic storyteller. But I'm gonna tell you how I know of what I think about her. And a poem that I wrote for her is called For Linda Goss, a tribute to a true storyteller. And if you listen closely, that's all you need to know about Linda. Here we go. With her big old smile and her eyes that shine, she takes her God-given talent and spreads it around. Her words grab you and carry you away to those faraway places where the animals play. Before you know it, you met birds that talk elephants that fly, and frogs that rock. She got granddaddy stories from way back when that capture the spirit of how things were then. There's one story she tells about a peach cobbler pie. The taste she describes, my oh my, you mean you ain't heard? She got stories on top of stories that quench your thirsty soul. She got rap stories, song stories, stories about pride. You know, I've seen her turn a scarf into a story one time with her big old smile and her eyes that shine. She takes her God-given talent and Linda spreads it around. That girl spreads it around. Hello, Linda.
Well, oh, well. It's storytelling time. How's everybody doing?
Doing great. Doing
Everybody's
great.
doing fine because, well, oh, well, it is storytelling time.
Storytelling time. That's right.
So Linda, how long has it been since you've been in Pittsburgh?
Oh, it's been a while. It's been much too long. Much too long. I think the last time I was there, I was working with the Shona Sharif Dance Company.
Right.
I was doing programs with her. I think that was the last time. That would have been in the 90s, I guess around 1999, something like that.
Actually, 97.
Okay, so you know better than I do. All right, you are my historian. Go ahead, child.
Well, I'm just so glad and so proud. I'm going to take a picture of the set because I have everything set up here that's all Linda Goss. But I know a lot of people want to know more about you. So I think Lois is going to share some information about this great person, about the great person that you are.
Okay. And I go by Tony, Mama Linda. We're around about the same age, so we may have some of common experiences or whatever, but I
Okay.
want to tell everybody, and I do not know what is, um, there's an echo, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. Well, Mama Linda Goss was born in Alcoa, Tennessee in 1947. And her parents were Willie and Junior McNeil. And she had a granddaddy named Granddaddy Murphy and the Uncle Buster. I know we all have Granddaddy Murphys and we all have Uncle Busters in our family. So, it's going to make it right at home. But Linda graduated from the Charles M. Hall High School in Alcoa. She studied drama at Howard University. She has a master's in education from Antioch University, and she is a member of the Zeta Beta sorority. And she has a lifetime of achievements. And I'm going to just give you a list of what her achievements are. Sometimes we get accolades, and the most accolades or the best accolades we get coming from our own. But Linda, you have had some really great accolades. And I'm just going to share these with everybody. Starting in 1975 at the Smithsonian Festival of American Life, I was there. I remember that, where there was a resurgence of American storytelling traditions in 1982, along with Mother Mary Carter Smith, who was the griot of Baltimore and the official griot of Maryland. Both of you have founded in the tradition the annual National Black Storytelling Festival and conferences. And noticing that at the national storytelling conferences around the country, there were very few people of color or African Americans represented. So in 1984, you and Mother Mary Carter Smith created the National Association of Black Storytellers. In 1984, you were the official storyteller of Philadelphia, and I understand that there's a mural of you called the Traveling Storyteller somewhere in Philadelphia. So next time you go to Philly, we got to check that out. In 2003, the National Storytelling Network gave you a Oracle Lifetime Achievement Award, and the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts also honored you with a fellowship in folk and traditional art. You were a Benjamin Botkin Scholar Lecturer You won the award from the Library of Congress American Folk Life Center. You are now the storyteller in residence at the Peel Museum in Baltimore, and the ambassador for the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore, which I hope everybody has had a chance to see. And I'm just hopeful. I'm wondering if if you are represented as well at the museum. But in 2019, and this is the very first African American Fellow for Storytelling through the National Endowment of the Arts National Heritage Fellow. That's the highest honor that could be given in the folk and traditional arts. Uh, Sister Mama, Linda Goss, lives in Baltimore. She's been married for 50 years to her husband, Clay, and together they've authored several books. They have 3 children, Aisha, Yehuda, and Jamal. And the books, I'm just going to list them, and then we can get right into what we're here for is to have an evening with Mama, Sister Linda Goss. So the books that she's written as The Baby Leopard, a How and Why story, Talk That Talk, an anthology of American storytelling, the Bible, Jump Up and Say, a collection of Black storytelling, It's Kwanzaa Time, and Saying Something, stories from the National Association of Black Storytellers, and The Frog Who Wanted to Be a Singer, which Cynthia was like one of the first stories that she told. So there you have it. And I'm so happy to be here with you this evening as well, because I am a storyteller of the African American oral tradition myself, and it took me a moment to even claim that for myself, but I am, and I am so honored to be here with sister storytellers, you and Cynthia.
Thank you, Asante Sana. Thank you so much.
So, Linda,
Yes.
you sitting home chilling with your husband down there in Baltimore. How does it feel to hear all this about you? You know, your husband is probably saying, hey, get me a sandwich, or, you know, hey, baby, you want something from the store? But to me, and both of you in your own rights, because Clay is, you know, right there with you writing. How does it feel to be such an inspiration to people like me? And I try to pass that on to some of the young people that I'm in contact with. How does it really feel?
Well, Sister Cynthia, first of all, I want to thank all of you for inviting me to be a part of this program. I commend you, and I pray that you will continue to be successful at what you're doing. I'm thankful that I'm able to do what I have done and what I am able to continue to do. I give all of the glory to the man upstairs, as I call him. I feel this comes from the divine, and I'm humbled. I'm humbled by what people tell me about how I have affected them, and sometimes I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with joy, and this is what keeps me going. And my whole goal is to uplift people, to uplift our children, is to remember and honor the ancestors, to remember and respect the elders, and to, above all, uplift our youth. So all of this is part of my message of just caring and sharing, because I think that is what the world really is all about. I think the more people work together and share and show the love and joy, the better the world is, because the world is still here, because people have realized we have to empower ourselves and that we have to come together for the benefit of all humankind. And the only way we're going to get somewhere is by pulling together, Harambe, pulling our resources together and marching on.
You're so right about that. Right now, could you imagine the stories that's going to be told 20 years from now? I mean, about 2020. So
I could only imagine. There's so much is going on, so much It's happening like in split seconds. Ever since 2020 came here, from January on, something has occurred. Something has occurred, and even what's going on in Philadelphia is a continuation. We're still mourning the loss of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and now we have to mourn the loss of Walter Wallace Jr. So it's a continuation of what we have endured in this country, but we have to, again, come together, have programs like what you're having, reach out to the people, reach out to all people, to our people, and hear their stories, hear what they're going through, hear their anguish. And we as a country, we have to mourn and grieve. People ask me, how come I don't show myself on Zoom? I haven't really shown myself on any of the Zoom calls I've been on, is because I come from a town that believes in mourning and grieving our loss. We have over 200,000 people in this country who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. And yet we haven't mourned. We haven't grieved. No flags have hung half-staff. There has not been a national day of mourning. We had a national day of mourning when we had 9/11. So that's one reason why I don't show my face, is because I am in mourning. I am in mourning for over 200,000 people, men, women, and children, black, white, all colors, all backgrounds, who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. And yet, because of where our nation is acting now, we act as if nothing has happened. We just go on. We know we have to go on, but a certain point is part of our heritage, is part of our culture, to remember and to mourn and grieve over what we have lost, and to let the people who have lost loved ones, who have lost family members and friends, let them know we are there for you.
This is also a time for us to tell our stories, not for us to tell our stories, because
yes.
Storytelling is healing. It's really
yes, it is.
Yes,
it is.
Yeah, and we as a community, we're used to going to hear a storyteller and have someone tell stories to us, but we need to do more of telling our stories to each other. And I know you have been providing a venue for that to happen in the past, and I'm sure that is something that we can help with our own healing, with all this mourning, all the trauma that we're going through.
Yes, I agree. Some of the things I'm doing now, I'm the storyteller in residence at the Peel Center here in Baltimore, and I have created Mama Linda's Chapbook. And twice a month they put up praise songs that I have written, and also contains an interview with me, as well as me reciting the poem, and the actual writing of the poem is online. I'm also working on a project called Let the Sojourner Truth Be Told. And this is a tribute to the black women suffragists and other heroes of distinction. And I've gathered over 700 names because I started this project over 2 years ago. And when I think of black women suffragists, naturally I think of Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and Ida B. Wells, Mary Church Terrell. And I came up with about 10 names. And then I discovered there were so many more, so many black women who deserve, again, we deserve to call out their names. Part of what we do as storytellers is to have people to remember the ones who are unsung, unloved.
Right.
And so we want people to call out their names, to remember their names. It is important for us to know who Adela Hunt Logan was. It is important for us to know who Amanda Smith was. So many women came together in the 1800s and organized and tried to bring about the 19th Amendment, the vote. And we don't know. It's really a revelation for me to keep discovering new women, new names to add to this list. So that's what I'm working on now. It is a project where, because everything is virtual now, I can't have it in a public arena. So what we're doing, we are recording women reciting the names of these great sheroes. And for example, we began with Mama Ruff, who is 98 years old, and she called out 5 names. And to hear her call out Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper is just very powerful. And so my goal is to get all of these names called out aloud and recorded, and then put them over the airwaves. The Pill Center is going to broadcast them over their speaker system, so to go outside, out into the streets. And that's what I aim to do, is put it so they can go all over the country so people can hear at least 700 black women who made a difference in this country.
At least 700.
At least, and it's more than that. Actually, because when I interviewed Paula Giddings, who is the author of When and Where I Enter, she said during that time it was 10,000, at least 10,000 black women who came together, thousands of them. So that's why this piece I'm doing, it doesn't have an ending. In other words, we will continue to add names to the list because these women are everywhere. They're all over the country. And so I'm finding more. I want other people to tell me, people in their hometown, for example, who is in Pittsburgh, who was part of the black women suffragettes in Pittsburgh. I have people in Pennsylvania, people in Philadelphia, but I'm looking for black women in Pittsburgh who made a difference.
Well,
you heard it. She's putting out the call for here in Pittsburgh, and I know in other places, but she's putting out the call for us to name the women. And can you name some of the women whose names that have been collected so far?
Oh my goodness. I don't have that in front of me, but some of the women, again, Mary Church Terrell, and it's broken up into 2 parts. Part 1, women who were born before 1900. And part 2, women who were born 1900 and beyond. And all these are ancestors. These are women who have made transition. And one of the women is Hetty Reckless, Hetty Reckless, which is a very interesting name. A name I just discovered a few days ago, Georgia May Turner. We know about Freddie Lou Hamer, but Georgia May Turner also tried to vote down in Fayette, Tennessee, and she was kicked off of her property. She had several children, and she was a sharecropper. And during those times when you tried to vote down there, they would just kick you off the land. They would just make you homeless, houseless, landless. And so she ended up staying in a place that became Freedom Village. It was like tents. They had to set up tents in people's yards in order to live. So we talk about voter suppression going on now. It's a continuation of what went on from the time, really, from the time we were given quote-unquote citizenship through the 13th Amendment on through the time we have been trying to vote. So it's a continuation. So there are just so many women. Anna Murray Douglas. The people may not know who she is, but they know who Frederick Douglass was. Anna Murray Douglas was Frederick Douglass's first wife. The reason why he was able to do so much is because she was the bookkeeper. She was the accountant. She was the one who got him clothes to wear so he could escape and he could go unrecognized. She was the one who was able to maintain the household. They had at least 5 children. He was able to go out and be this great orator because when he came home, he knew there was going to be food, and he knew that she was the one that was saving the money. And she was a very smart, intelligent woman. And yet, during her lifetime, some of the white women were so jealous of her that they said very disparaging things about her in the press. And it wasn't until she died that her daughter, Rosetta Douglas Sprague, who was also Frederick Douglass's daughter, wrote a beautiful article about her in the papers called My Mother as I Knew Her. because people were prejudiced against her because she was dark, because she was quiet, and she took a lot of abuse, but she kept on. She didn't let anything turn her around. As the song said, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And so she is responsible for the great Frederick Douglass. As they say, behind every man there is a woman. She is the woman behind him. So we really need to know more about Anna Murray Douglass. And she is on the list, as well as their daughter, Rosetta Douglass Sprague. So there are just many, many women, many, many stories, thousands and thousands of stories that need to come out. I mean, we talk about the truth. The truth has to come out. The truth has to come out that what we're going through now is a continuation. The way our people were treated during the fight for the right to vote is atrocious. Fannie Lou Hamer was beaten so badly that she never fully recovered from all of her injuries. And technically, that's what she died from. A lot of women down south, a lot of black women down in Mississippi and what have you, were sterilized. Fannie Lou Hamer couldn't have children because they sterilized black women without their permission. So many horrible things have taken place. So all these women are on the list.
That's a wonderful project. And I have a cousin who is 109 years old, and I am definitely going to go and ask her, does she have some names?
Oh, yeah, please do, because that's what we are looking for. We're looking for the names, and hopefully from there I want to get the story. Right now I have the names, their date of birth, their date of death, and some people's names who we have, there is no record of their date of birth. There is no record of their deaths because they didn't keep really good records on black people during those times.
Yes, and there's a saying that women hold up half the sky. I think we should say that black women hold up the sky.
Oh, definitely so. Definitely so. That's why it's important to instill in our children, our males and our female children, the importance and the role of black women and black mothers, as well as black men too. Because during those times, the white suffragists wanted black women to choose race or sex. They wanted them to choose between their black men or feminism. And the black women chose race because they knew that was more important because they had children, they had households. So the whole thing of the black woman has always been about community, about family, about keeping the family together, and about the extended family. That's what's important when you read about what happened back in those times, when you read actual accounts. And black women were writers, they were readers. Again, they had organizations like what you're having. What you have today with your book club is a continuation of the black organizations that women had, that women created in their homes, in their schools, at the Phyllis Wheatley YWCA, in the churches, at the community centers. And so this is very important for you to realize that you are part of a tradition. It's part of a tradition for black women to have clubs, to meet, and also to meet for the purpose of educating our children. It was so important to learn how to read and write back in those days, and it is still important to know how to read and write now.
Yes, and in Pittsburgh, we had the Aurora Book Club, which is like one of the oldest women's book clubs here in Pittsburgh. And also, in terms of where we were talking about literacy development and story, and in these days of COVID-19, where the education system has been disruptive in some kinds of ways, we are going to have to go back to what we did in the past. Could you expound on that a little bit? What we need to do now because of the pandemic, because it's just as important today as it was back then.
Yes.
So one of the things that I find that this COVID has done, we're all trapped in the house, but this is a wonderful opportunity for us to have storytelling with our children. Um,
Yes.
I mean, with our 1 year olds, our newborns, whatever, just
Mhm.
to get that that
Mhm.
that 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 powerful voice, that those words that just hug you. I mean, there's nothing more more powerful than listening to a story about, and everybody had the same story. I don't think it mattered what your race was, but you had to walk to school with a shoe with holes in your shoes and the snow
Mhm.
and all this
Mhm.
stuff. And I would sit there with my mouth wide open and my eyes like,
Mhm.
wow, just imagining all that and all the things that just language and storytelling really helps a child's imagination, just sends them to places that and they're all different. You can have
Yes.
3 children in your home listening to a story and they're going to have their own images. I think
Mhm.
the way things are now, I know I'm going to do it with my grandson who comes here on the weekend. He's usually on the iPad. I'm usually tired, but we're going to do some more storytelling, you know.
Yes, that's good.
And one of the ways we did it, not with this grandson, but another grandson, was to, I would say something, I would say start a story, then he would start, finish it and add on and add on and add on. And the next thing you know, we done told a whole story. Now it's time for somebody to write it down. Um, I know when in the poem that I wrote for you, you had granddaddy stories from way back when that captured the spirit of how things were then. What was it like in Tennessee in the back then, listening to all those stories? I mean, is that how you became or why you became a storyteller?
Well, I think for me, and I've heard other black storytellers say the same thing. For me, storytelling is a calling. Like some people are called to preach. I feel I have been called to go out and tell the story or be a word spreader or tell what is going on or what has happened. And I grew up in a storytelling family. I was surrounded by storytelling. My mother was a teacher. My father worked for the Aluminum Company of America. He told me a lot of stories. And Granddaddy Murphy told me a lot of stories about what happened in Alabama, what he had seen and what he had experienced down there in Alabama and Brundage. And Brundage is right next door to Troy, where John Lewis came from. So that was a very interesting area, apparently rich in storytelling, rich with people wanting to make a difference. And so Granddaddy Murphy came to Alcoa, Tennessee, to get a better job, a better living for his family. They were all sharecroppers down there, very poor area. They had grown cotton, and then the cotton business kind of went bust, and then they started growing peanuts. But Granddaddy got tired of being pushed around. As he said, he got tired of being pushed around by the white man. So he left and brought his wife, my grandmother, and their 2 children. Well, my father was only 3 years old when he came to Alcoa. So both, and I think my father had another little brother who later died. But he would tell me all kinds of stories about what Alabama was like. His great grandfather, who would be my great great grandfather, was enslaved. His name was George, but George didn't want to be a slave, and so he ran off. And what people don't realize when we think in terms of quote unquote fugitives or runaway enslaved people, many of them were young, many of them were children. And George was like a child, no more than about 11, 12 years old. Many of the people who ran away during those times were children because they started working with you, like Granddaddy said, from the time you were born, from the time you could walk. They put you out there in the cotton fields. So George didn't want to be enslaved, so he ran away, and he was able to survive in the woods on his own for many years until the enslavement was over. And he knew how to eat, what to eat. He ate whatever he could get his hands on, whether it be frog or squirrel or possum or snake. He survived. And I tell that story, part of Freedom Stories, which was sponsored by the International Storytelling Center. And you can go online and hear me telling the complete story. This was part of Freedom Stories, storytelling in Black Appalachia. And I'm from Black Appalachia. I'm a Black Latchie because I was born at the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains.
Right.
And so if people want to listen to it, they can just put my name in, Mama Linda, Freedom Stories, ISC, and hear me tell the story about George and what he had to go through. I mean, people think, again, we have romanticized our enslavement, of our treatment. We talk about how bad things are now, how terribly people are being treated now. Think about how horribly they were treated then. As Granddaddy Murphy said, there were no doctors. People had all kinds of diseases, all kinds of sores on their bodies. Like you said earlier, they had no shoes on their feet. They didn't have decent clothing. You know, there was measles, chickenpox, diphtheria, whooping cough, flu, you name it, they had it. I can only imagine if there was a COVID-19 going around like it is now. But our people were resilient. They were able to survive all the horrible things they went through. But if you can imagine no doctor, that's how the midwives became very, very important in terms of taking care of our people. That's always important, to go out into the forest and learn how to make dandelion tea and peach tree, learn what bark to put around a child's neck while they were teething. And when I was a child, they used to put something around my neck called asafoetida, and it smelled terrible, but it was a bark that kept you from getting colds. They used to make onion pads to put against your chest when you had a bad cold, when you had pneumonia. I mean, our people had TB. They suffered all kinds of horrendous diseases. Not enough food, not enough clothing. So we've heard of Phyllis Wheatley, the great poet. She was the first published poet in America in the 1700s. What we don't realize is that she came over to America as a child from Africa, and she had like something, it looked like a rug wrapped around her. She was a child shivering in the cold. And the Wheatley family, John Wheatley, took her in, and they taught her how to read, and she was more or less like a pet. That's how they treated us back in those days, when they would give us as gifts to their children, and we were treated like pets. And so poor Phyllis Wheatley, when she came over here, she was sick. She was already riddled with tuberculosis. So she only lived to be I don't think she lived to be past 30. And when she died, well, her baby died before she did. Then she died, and they buried them together. So we don't realize how tragic Phyllis Wheatley's life is. She was a great poet, but we forget how she died. Again, we tell the story, but our community doesn't know the whole story. And that's what's important, to hear the whole story. The truth has to come out about how we were treated. Not only were we enslaved in this country, we were badly treated. And that has to come out. And once the enslavement ended, they just threw us to the wolves. You had thousands of people in Washington, D.C. living on the streets because there were nowhere for us to go. Many of our people had to stay on the plantation because that was the only way they were going to get something to eat. That was the only way they were going to get a little bit of money. But we were treated horrendously once the enslavement was over. Again, a continuation of how we're treated now.
I would love to. We can carry on this conversation for days and days and days and days, but and what goes around comes around, and we all have stories to tell just like that. And as a storyteller, and we only have a few more minutes, would you grace us with just maybe even a part of a story? I know that you gave us these great stories, these are true stories, and we should know the truth. But do you have just a snippet of one of your stories that you'd like to share with us?
Well, here's what I'm doing now. I've been doing for the past, I guess, several years now, creating these praise songs. And this is a praise song I created in June for our black men for Father's Day. And I would like to read this one. It's called Black Men of America, a Father's Day Card. Oh, Black men of America, I pray every day that the Creator continues to show you the way, show you the light as you continue to fight for equal rights. Your ancestral mothers and fathers were stolen, forced to work and toil on stolen land that was not your native soil. You have fought in wars for the USA. The American Revolutionary War, you were there. The War of 1812, you were there. The Civil War, you were there. The Spanish-American War, you were there. World War I, you were there. World War II, you were there. The Korean War, you were there. The Vietnam War, you were there. The Persian Gulf War, you were there. The war in Iraq, you were there. The war in Afghanistan, you are still there. Yet, you are whipped, bruised, beaten, burned, raped, lynched, shot, stabbed, and wrongly incarcerated. Bodies spreading all across the American landscape everywhere. Where are the statues that represent your bravery? Where are the statues that represent your endurance? Where are the statues that represent your protests? You have tried to do your best, yet police brutality is a reality. Many of you are police officers. Many of you are firefighters. You have proven over and over and over again your allegiance to the USA. And yet, you still cannot have a say. You cannot kneel quietly and protest. Yet a white police officer can kneel on your neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Oh, I have lost the rhyme to this poem. I cannot unsee what I have seen. I cannot protect the children from what they are seeing and hearing. When my father died, they placed the American flag in Mama's lap at his gravesite. Yet over and over again, this country takes away the right for black men to give their insight. The USA needs black men to defend this country. But what about the fight against bigotry? It doesn't matter whether or not some black men are scholars and have PhDs. It doesn't matter if they become the president of the USA. They are still maligned and scorned. They are still denied the right to be reborn. Oh, black men of America, when will you feel that life, liberty, and happiness applies to you? When will you truly be a part of the red, the white, and the blue? Oh, black men of America, we love you.
Ashe.
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 Ashe, Ashe. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Wow, Linda. You just took me through a journey of pain.
Mm.
And it's just, like you said, everything that's happening today, everything that happened before, and we're still trying to be brave and put on a brave face. And, you know, me personally, I'm trying to be that person, but I'm not the same person I was when George Floyd got killed.
Yes.
I'm just not.
Yes.
I'm just not the same. And
Yes.
trying to find myself to fit into something that outwardly shows that she's all right, but inwardly try to keep my head together because I'm still thinking about Emmett Till. I'm still thinking.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
What happened in the past.
Oh yes.
Thinking about all those things, but you know, but I want us to, you know, so I don't know.
You touched on you know so much. You touched on the heart of what is happening to us, what has been happening to us, and what is happening to us. Do you have any words for the future for us as Black people?
Well, in terms of the future, we have to keep on keeping on because we're still here.
Yep.
Whether we believe or don't believe, whatever our faith is, We're still here for a reason. In spite of what has happened to us, we have survived. I mean, we are children. All black people in this country are children of ancestors who survived. Our ancestors are the survivors. They're the ones who survived the Middle Passage. Even though some black folks could say, well, I was a free person, I blah, 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 blah. Even if you came over here free, you weren't treated like a free person. You were lumped in with everybody else. But our ancestors are survivors. They survived the Middle Passage, and we are children of ancestors who survived. And so that's what we must remember, and that's what we must pass on to our children, is that we are survivors, and we must keep on. We must keep on keeping on. We must realize that, again, we can't forget people like Henrietta Lacks. She's another person on the list. We can't forget that her cells were used to discover all these discoveries in terms of polio, in terms of cloning, in terms of so many things. Our people have been used in so many ways. Our people have been used as guinea pigs to discover for all these breakthroughs in science and all these inventions and things like that. We have to remember that we are a creative group of people, and that we also have to remember that we are one human race, that all people, all Homo sapiens on this earth came from Mother Africa. Mother Africa is our homeland. It's the homeland for all Homo sapiens. It's the homeland for all of us. We really are one race, but because of nations and white supremacy and bigotry, the whole idea of race has been created to divide people up. But we all came from one group of people which came out of Africa. So we have to recognize that Mother Africa is the homeland for Homo sapiens. And if we are to continue to survive, we have to come together and we have to work together. We have to work together to discuss climate change, because it's one thing to talk about COVID-19. We got to talk about climate change as well. There are so many things we have to address, so many things that are affecting our communities. Not only the voter suppression, not only police brutality, but so many global things, water supply, food supply. So it's so much going on. Just going to the grocery store, I mean, like they're saying now, there's a run on the groceries again. So it's so many things we're going to have to deal with. The whole idea of education. Education has changed in this country forever. And we have to realize that, and we have to realize how it's going to affect our black children, because it's definitely going to affect the public school system. Now, the private schools are still having school, and we are going to have to come up with different ways and make demands that our children get the education that they need. So again, so they can compete for the jobs that are out there. And the big jobs out there are engineering, anything dealing with computers and all of that, because that's going to be the big question. Where are the jobs going to come from? So there are a lot of questions out there that need to be addressed and need to be answered.
Yes, yes. Well, you have just taken us to church, taken us to school, taken us to the streets, taken us, I remember and I recall, and we thank you. We could go on and on and on and on, but maybe someone has a question out there they'd like to ask you. I don't know. Do we have any questions? Um, because I guess we're so full right now. I don't know if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask. I just know that I'm almost like overcome and almost overwhelmed, because we need storytellers. We need people to tell us stories of our lives.
Yes,
We
yes.
need to tell them and we need to tell them to each other. We need to tell them to our children. And
Yes.
yes, We do.
Yes, and I also want to say, Cynthia, Sister Cynthia, is that I'm an optimist, and I believe in hope. And no matter how grim things may seem, I still believe in hope. I still feel that there is always hope. Hope is always alive. Even though some people try to crush it, they try to crush our spirits. But if you think about our songs, our great spirituals, I've been beauty and I've been scorned, we still rise up, as Maya Angelou said, and still I rise. We still rise. So, again, I want people to feel encouraged. I want people to feel that they can overcome and they will overcome because there's always hope. But again, we have to express how we feel. We have to ask our children how they feel because our kids are witnessing all of this madness. They have witnessed 4 years of what is going on in this country and the world, and it's important to get their story, whether they tell it, whether they draw it, whether they paint it, whether they dance it, whether they sing it. Again, we have to address the issues. Again, it's so many issues. We need to write a list. We have to address the issues of bullying, what exactly a bully is. And I wrote a poem about bullying. That's in my latest book, The Color of My Soul. But we have to address that, first of all, bullying, and how bullying is linked to police brutality. It's linked to a lot of things. It's more than just somebody bullying you on the playground. That's where it can begin, but it goes all the way up to the top. And we as a people, we have been bullied, or people have tried to bully us ever since they stole us from the motherland and brought us over here. So those again, there are great issues that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed all the way through. And at the same time, we need to discuss and realize that there is hope, because we have to say to people, what are your dreams? What are your dreams for a better world? What are your dreams for a better America? What is it you would like to do? I used to do an exercise with children where I would ask them, I would say, now you're president of the United States, and you're only going to be president for 30 minutes. What would you do? What would you change? What would you do in those 30 minutes? And to hear their responses is just unbelievable, unbelievable. Yes. So again, there is always hope. So we are to never give up, never to give in. There is always hope.
Yes, there's
you know what, Mama Lee,
we have 2 minutes left.
I understand.
We have a question too.
And we have a question.
One of the questions we have is from Brandon. He asks, we all live with mental health. However, we all do not live with mental illness. How do we create a greater space to embrace the richness of gifts of African American men celebrating their voices and gifts?
Well, again, we have to create the venue. We have to create the platform. We have to create, again, the space, the place in which people can express themselves. No matter where Black men are, whether they are incarcerated, whether they're in the church, whether they're in the school, you have to be able to tell your story. And yes, mental health, that is a crisis in this country. That's another crisis, not only affecting our people, but affecting most Americans. We have to deal with that mental health crisis, exactly what that is, what that entails, and we can't be ashamed of it. We can't push it under the rug. Again, we have to own up to things. If you've been in a situation where you have been suppressed, oppressed, it's going to make you a little crazy. Let's face it. If you're in a situation where all they do is throw medications at you, all kinds of drugs and stuff, when you get off of it, you're going to be a little different. When you have witnessed, like Sister Cynthia said, the murder, the heartless murder of George Floyd, can you imagine what that's done to our children, what it's done to every children all over the world who saw that? Because nothing is hidden now. You can see things all over the internet. Yes, it's going to affect you. That's what I was talking about when I was saying how we need a day of mourning. We need a day. We need time to cry. We need time to grieve. Crying is part of our emotions. It lets us know that we're human beings. We need a time to ask for forgiveness. We need a time to forgive, and we need a time to come together to reconcile. And this
Yes.
country needs to apologize for what it has done to people of color. And yes, we need to be compensated. Yes, we need reparations. Yes, all that has to come to light. And until all that comes to light, yes, there are going to be problems, and yes, there is mental illness and mental health. Of course there is, because witnessing. Think about like you mentioned Emmett Till. Think about what has happened since Emmett Till. Think about what has happened since Trayvon Martin. Think about what has happened since uh, Ahmaud Arbery. Think about what has happened since Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
So yes, it affects us. It affects us, and yet we have to get up, go out, and go to a job, and
Yep.
go out and do a 9 to 5.
Yep.
Mama
We
Linda,
still have to make men's. We have to still make ends meet.
Yep.
Mama Linda, you've given us food for thought, and you've answered. We had a couple other questions, but I think we've reached the end of our evening. It's been
Mm.
wonderful. It's been real. It's been true, and we want to thank you for all that you've done and all that you're doing, and that just thank you for being here this evening.
Oh, Asante Sana, thank you so much. And again, I just am so proud of what you're doing. This is so necessary, and may you continue to do this, because you're keeping the tradition alive. You're keeping the tradition of organizing and having clubs alive. And again, you should be honored for that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, and you'll be hearing from me. I just wanted to ask, was that Harriet Lachlan you said?
Henrietta
Oh,
Lacks.
Henrietta.
Henrietta Lacks, Lacks.
Okay.
She was the woman whose cells were stolen at Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Right,
She
right,
had
right.
cancer, and her cells have been used, oh my God, billions of times.
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
made
Yes,
money off of them and everything, but her cells have been used to cure so many illnesses, used in cancer research, using all kinds of research, and they're probably using them now to deal with this COVID-19.
right. Now, thank
That's
And
thank
something
you
to
you're
for
think
right.
that.
about. Well, you
And
know what? We're gonna have to bring you back because
yes, we are.
Okay.
right. This
Yeah, right, we are.
We're
this
out of
okay.
time, but
Thank you so
yes,
much.
yes,
So
Thank
all
yes,
you.
praises to our guest, Mama Linda Goss, the master
Thank you.
storyteller, the griot, the jelly musa, all of that. Didn't she take us? She took us to class. She took us to our moral center. She did it all. And to all of you, our precious audience, we really appreciate you jumping on our ride with the wind of literacy. Don't forget to read and tell stories to your children, even those in the womb. Lifelong learners and scholars. Next week, we will be honored with author Jewel Parker Rhodes, author of Ghost Boys and Black Brother, Black Brother. And it is a special treat because she is going to be interviewed by our youth. Please jump in. Please take the ride with us and bless and keep you all. Be safe. And don't forget, read, read, read. Never stop reading. And when you can't read anymore, what do?
Read some
Write.
more. All right.
All right. And
Thank you.
always, always listen. Good night.
Good
Thank you.
night. Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Oh, that was really nice. Oh.